for people. I'll give you and the other thing is, whenever you're dealing with new technology, you're dealing with people who have fear of new things, right? It's just a natural human behavior, not that it's technology, it's just fear of the new, right? Fear of change. And so the easiest reaction of people who have fear of something new is to tell you why it's bad in a sound bite, right? So that's all you hear is like, energy consumption, bad, meme coins, speculation, right? Like consumer retailers getting wrecked, right? And that's all noise until you actually have an evidence-based conversation, which is what Rich is describing that he was able to do. And I had to do something similar when we were doing our supply chain blockchain work, which is a massive cost of capital benefit to the corporation from what we did in our chips supply chain business in cloud. And using a public number here, that's more than $30 billion per year in spend to keep growing, right, the cloud business. So that's data about the movement of those goods flowing across blockchain and getting detailed information from the state change information associated with where that stuff is, whose hands it is in, et cetera. And so that allowed us to do a cost of capital benefit through just-in-time funding. In order to get that into production, I had to go in front of a guy named who is our chief environmental officer, and his sustainability review board, or environmental review board, and prove through data that the infrastructure that we were putting in place from a blockchain perspective was not what everybody was scared of, right? The energy consumption of proof of work, which is what most people point to when they talk about that problem space. And at the time, actually, Ethereum was still running on proof of work, so we also had to differentiate what we were doing internally versus the public blockchain Ethereum. This is shortly before the merge. So we knew the merge was coming, so I could also show the difference on pre-merge, post-merge in terms of energy footprint. And all of that data, like nobody has done that before. In fact, there was nothing in the market where that was done before. And it involves going through what does a workload look like in a cloud infrastructure, in our case, obviously, and what is the footprint, the carbon footprint, and all of the other environmental impacts associated with those specific workloads running 24 hours a day, et cetera, and what does that net out to? And then how do you compare it to something that people understand? Like, what does it cost to charge a cell phone, which is one of the examples we did. And so creating evidence, and obviously also as an instructor at NYU, this is also a really important thing, is like you need to move people into an evidence-based conversation so you can have the real conversation.
Something you said reminded me of an anecdote about when Brian Chesky of Airbnb was first, had their idea. He went to one of his mentors and told him about the idea to share homes. And he said, I hope that's not the only thing you're working on. So just to the point of, dismissing or, no, it's not going to work, that's crazy. The innovation is filled with examples of that.
You have to show people.
Yeah.
That's the thing that I've realized on the journey is like there's a bunch of papers out there. There's a lot of writing. I think even for myself, we all have this bias that people can explain things to you, and you may grok it, you may get it, but it doesn't really motivate you to act until you see it, right? Like the thing that motivated me to act when I looked at crypto the first time was being able to send a payment on chain. And that was just really incredible. And then the next big moment for me was using Uniswap, right? The idea that you could buy a financialized asset without having to go through kind of the rigorous checks of Charles Schwab or whatever your brokerage account might be. That was amazing, right? And so I feel like we do a lot of evangelizing in the written form in crypto, but I think we need to do more of showing the value that we're talking about in a very real way that's real to the people that we're talking to.
Mm-hmm.